There is at least one group, like the one that I was just talking about, that's not quite ready to accept a Trump presidency, and that would be the members of Hillary Clinton's inner circle and her campaign who took part in a Harvard Institute of Politics forum earlier this week. It is a tradition every 4 years. Campaign strategists gather in Cambridge to hash out a first draft of election history. This year's event started with moderator Andrea Mitchell welcoming Trump and Clinton operatives in the, quote, spirit of reconciliation. By the end, both sides had completely lost their cool. Exhibit 1, this biting exchange between Trump campaign manager Kellyanne Conway and Clinton comms director Jennifer Palmieri.
If providing a platform for white supremacists makes me a brilliant tactician, I am glad to have lost. And one of Hillary, give me a minute, David. I am more proud of Hillary Clinton's all right speech than any other moment on the campaign because she had the courage to stand up. I would rather lose than win the way you guys did.
Do you think I ran a campaign where white supremacists had a platform? You going to look me in the face and tell me that?
It did. Kellyanne
really?
did.
Oh, and that's how you lost?
It did.
Do you think you could have just had a decent message for the white working class voters?
We are going to have our dollop of campaign reflections from Clinton senior strategist Joel Benenson, who was at that event up in Cambridge and will be with us in just a moment. But first, Clinton's team has been criticized for seeming not to fully grasp the reasons that their candidate came up short in the election. Mark, from what you heard at Harvard, on a scale from 1 to Godzilla, yeah, there he is. On a scale from 1 to Godzilla, how much is the Clinton campaign still in denial about Hillary Clinton's loss?
Well, if you take their public statements, you'd say it'd begin close to Godzilla. But the fact is it's a 3. They can't blame their candidate. They don't want to blame each other publicly. Behind the scenes, though, there's a much greater recognition of the things that went wrong. But I will say, I thought that the tone of that thing was horrible. A lot of people that I've known for a long time on both sides in respect, I did not like to see what it escalated to. But the reality is, if you lose a race by that few votes, you can point to 1,000 things. They're pointing to the ones that are the politically and personally safest places to be. I don't think they're saying things that are wrong, but I do think publicly they're not giving anything like a complete explanation, starting with the performance, as Kellyanne Conway said, of the Democratic candidate.
I've been to a lot of those Harvard events, and the first one I ever went to in my life was in 1988 when I was a graduate student at the Kennedy School of Government, and I was able to come and watch. And it was after that campaign where the Bush campaign, George Herbert Walker Bush's campaign, had run a terrible negative campaign to destroy Mike Dukakis. And the passions were like this. It was the only time I've ever seen it before. Susan Estrich on one side, Roger Ailes on the other side, Lee Atwater, who are screaming at each other with this kind of emotion. There's occasionally you get a campaign like that where one side feels not only like they lost surprisingly, as was the case with Dukakis, who thought he had their campaign, I thought they had the election in the bag for many months, but lost in a way where they felt like the other side played, like colored way outside the lines and ran a nasty, dirty, unprecedentedly horrible campaign. So the emotions are just very close to the surface here. I think that give everybody, both sides, the Trump people who are spiking the football in an unpleasant way, the Clinton people who are still obviously emotional and overwrought about it, give them all a little time. I don't think it's about denial. It's just about the fact that the emotions are still so close to the surface. People need a little more time to get to a proper understanding of what took place.
And the comparison's apt because the Dukakis people felt the Bush people won in an illegitimate way, as you said, outside the lines.
All that stuff, yeah.
And in this case, the passion within the Clinton campaign of saying there were dog whistles, there were inappropriate appeals, there were things well over the line is pretty heartfelt. But as I said, over time, I think we'll learn that they see in a more 360-degree way the other factors that played a role here, including some divisions within the campaign about how they should have campaigned.
But here's the thing I don't think will go away. I think that Jennifer Palmieri, Robbie Mook, Joel Benenson, John Podesta, I think they will still think that Donald Trump ran a racist campaign. They'll still think that they provided a platform for anti-Semitism, for a white nationalism.
Till the day they die.
And I think they'll be right about all those things.
Till the day they
but
die.
They will better understand their failures. In addition to, I think they'll maintain that consistency, but I think they will better understand the things they did wrong than they do today.
Can you imagine what it would have been like if Steve Bannon had showed up?